nga pala si Fred Ochavo, dating officer ng Philippine Native Plants Conservation Society Incorporated o PNP CSI. PNP na, CSI pa. Member din ako ng UP Mountaineers at ng Wild Bird Club of the Philippines. Bale, una kong nakilala si Sir Leonard ko noong July 28, 2007. Yun yung unang taon na nakabisita si Sir Leonard ko sa Ipo Watershed. Actually, yun din yung unang taon ko na nakapunta doon sa lugar na yun. Yung Ipo Watershed ay yung isa sa mga threatened watersheds na nagsusupply ng tubig sa Metro Manila. Si Sir Boboy Francisco, isa sa mga founders ng UP Mountaineers, ang nagsabi sa akin noon na hanapin ko raw si Leonard ko para sa tree planting or reforestation project ng UP Mountaineers. Si Leonard ko kasi, sabi ni Sir Boboy, ay napakaraming alam pagdating sa mga puno at mga halaman. So napatunayan ko yun, kasi nung una kami nagpunta sa Ipo Watershed, magkasama kami ni Leonard ko, pati yung mga Latin ng mga pangalan ng mga puno, yung mga hindi ko maintindihan ng mga scientific names, nasasabi niya. Pati kung paano paramihin, kung paano paalagaan yung mga puno, nakukwento niya rin sa akin. Sobrang engaging ni Sir Leonard ko kapag nagkukwento siya, lalo na sa field. Hindi ko alam na yung pala yung tree walk na gagawin ng mga members ng Philippine Native Conservation Society hanggang ngayon. Sinimulan niya yun yung mga unang taon, kaya na malaki pa sa salamat ko na isa ako sa mga naging estudyante niya doon sa classroom without walls, kasi doon yun actually nangyayari sa kagubatan o sa kabundukan. Una ko siyang nakita noon, natatawa pa ako kasi hindi ko pa siya kilala eh. Sa Jollibee feel ko kami nagkita. Sabi ko, sino ba tong mamang to na may napakalaking bag at mayroong napakahabang payong? Aba, siya pala si Leonard ko, siya pala yung mga kasama namin sa unang bisita namin na magkasama sa Ipo Watershed. So nakakatawa kasi may payong, pero napatunayan ko na magiging useful din pala yon pagdating ng araw, lalo na sa mga bisita sa Ipo Watershed at iba pang mga kabundukan, kasi yung payong na yon na naging payong ko na rin, yun yung ginagamit para pananggalang kapag may ulan o kaya mainit yung araw. Naalala ko noon, nakakatawa siya pag nagkakaroon siya ng tree walk, kasi talagang makikinig ka sa kanya. Isa sa mga hindi ko makakalimutan na patawan niya nun, may megaphone kasi kami noon dahil medyo marami yung participants ng tree walk, so kailangan mas malakas yung boses. Abay, unang-una niya sinabi, napapaligiran namin kayo, sumuko na kayo. Tree walk yun ha, may mga professor, may mga kung sino-sino pang mga tao na kagalang-galang, pero nagagawa niyang magpatawa, kaya lahat talaga nakikinig sa kanya. So nung papunta kami sa Ipo Watershed noon, nasa may van, magkatabi kami noon, isa sa mga unya sinabi sa akin, walang kwenta yung tree planting. So nagtaka ako, kasi bilang isa baguhan pagdating sa tree planting, na parang game na game ka nun, kasi save the earth, save the trees, save the forest, save Mother Earth, bigla mong maririnig sa isang eksperto na walang kwenta ang tree planting. Nagtaka ako kung bakit niya nasabi yun, pero after several years ng pagpunta sa Ipo, napatunayan ko na totoo pala yung sinabi niya. Kasi kung talagang hindi proprotektahan ng kagubatan, kung tanim ka lang ng tanim ng puno, pero yung mga tao nagugutom, yung mga tao naghihirap, yung mga tao medyo sakim, baliwala talaga yung tree planting. Kaya yung sabi niya, kung ito yung bundok, ito yung natitirang gubat, ang protektahan mo yung kapaligiran nun, yung perimeter nun, kasi meron namang magtatrabaho, magtatanim dun sa mga nasirang mga bahagi nito. Mas mahusay pa kaysa sa mga tao, yung mga paniki, yung mga ibon pagdating sa pagtatanim daw ng mga puno. Ang dapat daw na protektahan yung mga dekada ng taon ng mga puno, kasi sila yung mga mother trees, sila yung nagsusupply ng seeds, sila yung nagpaparami ng mga puno sa paligid. So totoo nga yung sinabi niya, baliwala ang tree planting kung walang forest protection, kung walang pakipag-partner sa community. So ang dami kong natutunan sa kanya, kaya sana nga hanggang ngayon buhay pa siya, kasi siguro kung buhay pa siya, isa siya sa mga kinukulit namin, lalo na sa Facebook. Kasi naalala ko nun sa Facebook, nung bago pa lang yung Facebook at kakaroon pa lang niya, kapag tinatag ko siya, agad-agad siyang sumasagot. basta interesado ka sa puno, talagang alalayan ka niya, talagang tutulungan ka niya. So sana talaga boy pa si Leonard ko, sana kasama natin siya ngayon.
Hello, magandang araw po sa lahat. Nakikiisa ako sa pag-alala kay Sir Leonard ko sa kanyang buhay at sa malaki niyang naambag sa iba't ibang komunidad na nakasalamuhan niya. Ako po si Joan Cesario, isa akong film student doon sa UP Diliman. Bagaman di ko na naabutan si Sir Leonard, mapalad ako na makilala siya sa mga kwento at mga litrato ng mga taong malapit sa kanya noong nag-a-apply ako para maging member ng UP Mountaineers noong year 2015. Kung tutuusin, si Sir Leonard yung naging gateway talaga sa aking interest para mas matutunan at mas maunawaan yung environmental situation sa bansa. Maging yung importance ng native plants and trees, dito ko palang unang na lalaman o dito palang ako unang nai-introduce. Noong mga panahong ito rin, nasa proseso ako ng pagbubuo ng thesis film ko para sa college. Yung initial idea ko para dun sa short film, nabuo ko habang nakaupo sa bus nung pauwi kami galing sa level 1 climb ng UPN. So, yung film ay umiikot dun sa, tungkol siya sa isang batang babae na merong ama na botanist at isang hapon, hindi nasundo yung batang babae mula sa paaralan ng kanyang ama. So, umiikot yung kwento mostly doon po talaga sa batang babae. Kasi largely inspired ito ng sarili kong mga karanasan, yung sarili kong relasyon sa aking ama at sa aking pamilya. Pero malaking bahagi ng concept ng buong film ay inspired by Sir Leonard. Higit pa sa filmmaking, inspirasyon si Sir Leonard para sa kanyang paraan ng pamumuhay. Hanga ako dun sa mahigpit niyang pakikipag-ugnayan sa marginalized communities. Hanga ako particularly doon sa binuo na manual on Philippine medicinal plants kasi napakalaki ng naitutulong nito sa mga taong wala namang access sa ganitong impormasyon at kapos sa financial resources. So, ayun po, pasasalamat kay Sir Leonard ko. Inspirasyon ka sa aming mga kabataan at sa maraming iba pang tao. Hindi kami makakalimot. Patuloy po yung call for justice natin para sa pagpaslang kay na Sir Leonard, kay Sofronio Cortez at kay Julius Borromeo. Pati na rin po sa lahat ng environmental defenders na pinaslang dito po sa ating bansa. So, tuloy-tuloy lang yung sama-sama nating paglaban. Yun lang po at maraming salamat.
Hello everyone, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about a glimpse about Leonard, who was my best friend and my barkada in UP Diliman with the late Dan Lagunsad and Perry Ong. I first met Leonard in 1975, that is nearly 46 years ago in the Department of Botany at UP Diliman. We were classmates in plant microtechnique, and as a classmate, we became friends. He was the first person who encouraged me to climb several mountains in Luzon for botanical exploration. We have climbed Mount Santo Tomas, Mount Pulog, Mount Banahaw, Mount Makiling, and we visited several times UP Land Grant in Quezon. Through these botanical fieldworks, I learned so much taxonomic knowledge from him. He was a walking taxonomist that he can give not only the genus name, the species, but including the author's name. Unlike others, he shared his taxonomic knowledge without hesitation. My friendship with Leonard continued even I returned to Central Mindanao University in Bukidnon. Sometimes he would surprise me by appearing in our university without prior notice for an instant climb in Mount Kitanglad, bringing his collecting pole. There was one instance when I requested him to guide and climb Kitanglad again in Bukidnon with my international guests attending the conference in teardology. I think that was in 2007, and without even bringing a spare of clothing and even risking his life during that time, that he collapsed several times climbing that mountain. Leonard did it with commitment and dedication. Sharing his knowledge on taxonomy was his happiness, and he did it to anybody needing taxonomic help, regardless who you are and without return or favor. The last climb we had was in Mount Hamigitan, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. We climbed the mountain twice, and he dropped several times and would just say "Putsa" during those climbs. Again, he shared his taxonomic knowledge to the forest guards who were our guides and who became parataxonomists later because of Leonard. Up to now, these forest guards have not forgotten Leonard. Leonard, you are gone but not forgotten. You are always in our hearts and mind.
Good day to the participants of the Symposium of the Philippine Native Plants Conservation Society Incorporated. It has been 11 years since the death of Leonard Co. in Cananga, Leyte. As we commemorate his death, we want to celebrate his life as a conservationist and a nationalist. It is Leonard's belief that the love of country should extend to the conservation of its natural resources. The conservation of native plants, from Leonard's view, should involve committed individuals who pursue conservation work. That is the vision behind the establishment of the PNP-CSI. His death in 2010 was a great loss, and 11 years hence the conservation work continues. However, there are still many hindrances to conservation work, aside from the safety issues that Leonard himself faced. In some areas, the wanton destruction of the forest to give way to mining, especially in Mindanao, has displaced not only the wildlife or many of the trees that were cut down, but more importantly, many of the lumot communities have been displaced. So, part of this work in conservation is actually believing in the local communities and establishing links to help and support their efforts in conservation work. So it is in this light that the work of PNP-CSI continues. I salute the organization. Mabuhay kayong lahat. Salamat po.
Leonard Co. is one of the best botanists in our country, a conservation biologist and ethnopharmacologist at the same time. He is the founder of Philippine Native Plants Conservation Society Incorporated, or the PNP-CSI, a premier non-government organization in the Philippines advocating for conservation of native flora in their natural habitats. In 2007, Leonard founded the PNP-CSI and became its first president, with the mission of using Philippine native plants in forest restoration and landscaping. He launched student mentorship on Philippine flora and making plant photographs and data available to the public to promote education and nature conservation. As one of his community outreach programs, he provided by then a routine plant identification services at UP Diliman Herbarium for students and the general public free of charge. He also regularly visited Philippine National Herbarium to study other plant collections not present in UP Herbarium. Because of this, he expanded his taxonomic knowledge on Philippine flora, thus making him the man of his generation with unsurpassed taxonomic wisdom on Philippine vascular plants. Recognizing the significant roles and contributions of Leonard Cohen, the PNP-CSI officers and members, continuing what he started and exerted all efforts to raise awareness of the importance of biodiversity conservation in the Philippines. Over the last 14 years, the PNP-CSI has developed a diverse membership that includes researchers, students, professors, horticulturists, landscapers, architects, artists, protected area managers, hobbyists, and enthusiasts, all interested in learning more about and protecting our country's unique flora.
So si Leonard na meet ko yan ng ano when I heard from Anthony na ano no, na may binabalak na ano na society na mag na focus on native plants, no. Kasi when we met Leonard, yung Philippine native plants, medyo na focus yung ano namin, nagkaroon kami ng marang mga blinders na medyo una-una na-realize namin yung ano no, yung crisis regarding our natural habitats na nawawala na, no. Tapos yung ano na all these vanishing species na ano no, parang as soon as you discover them, critically endangered na sila agad, ano. So yun nga parang ayun, parang si Leonard yung naging ano namin parang guiding light namin, ano. Siya yung ano, yung parang the beacon. Parang ang ano namin is what would Leonard do, no, parate, no, pagka to look at things through his eyes, ano. So parang mas ano yung si Leonard ano yung sense of passion niya talagang infectious, na nakakaawa talaga na ano no. So yung habitats more than just the plants, no. Ang concern ni Leonard is the habitats, parang yung mga native habitats natin na ano. So medyo consider yung ano the totality, the ecosystems. So ecosystems, habitats, yun ang ano yung ang focus natin sa ano no, more than just the plants themselves, ano. So I think what's missing is ano no, ang daming ang ano no, ang daming enthusiasts ngayon, pero what's missing is the science, ano. I think yan yung medyo para nakakapanghinayang sa ano no, na yung with the loss of Leonard, parang yung nga sobrang daming interest in ano the natives, pero parang walang direksyon, parang yun ang ano no. So yun ang nakakapanghinayang talaga na wala si Leonard na ano no. Andun yung passion, andun yung enthusiasm, but the science and yung direction, ang pinaka-importante talaga the science behind it, na ano kasi yung nga sabi nila ano di ba, yung what's that say, how does that saying go, na ano no, the road to hell is ano ba, paved with good intentions, no. So good in sa ano no, ang daming ang ano no, ang daming enthusiasts ngayon, pero what's missing is the science, no. I think yan yung medyo para nakakapanghinayang sa ano no, na yung with the loss of Leonard, parang yung nga sobrang daming interest in ano the natives, pero parang walang direksyon, Parang Leonard ganun eh, as faithful to nature as ang ano niya sa restoration ang yung so it has to be always has to be science based. Yun ang no. So yun ang nakakapanghinayang talaga na wala si Leonard na andun yung passion, andun yung enthusiasm, but the science and yung direction, ang pinaka-importante talaga the science behind it eh, na kasi yung nga sabi nila di ba? Yung what's that say, how does that saying go na the road to hell is ano ba? Paved with good intentions, no? So most memorable moments with Leonard, madami na sa meeting na uuwi na kayo, biglang tatawagin niya kanya, nakita niyo, ipabubuksan niya yung laptop niya, no? Tapos sabihin niya, nakita niyo na ba to? Para lang hindi kayo umalis, no? So, ayun, papakita niya yung mga bagong nakita niyang halaman sa bundok, until basta every time we are about to leave, will show us something that would yung spark our curiosity. So, lapit na naman kami, no? So, parang inaakit niya kami parati na and it's not just showing these photographs niya. Kikwento niya sa iyo the natural history and why it's interesting na now parang everyone's quoting Leonard, no? This is Leonard's favorite plant, this is Leonard's this or that, no? Parang actually kami yung unang nangungulit kay Leonard about what's the most beautiful plant, ang sagot naman ni Leonard doon is hindi naman yung sinasabi nila na itong puno na to or that, ang sagot niya is lahat sila maganda na and at that time we were frustrated with his answer na bakit lahat na but as time went on and as we started to see things through his eyes, nakita mo na na lahat naman talaga maganda eh. And it's not so much that physically maganda siya, but when you see all the patterns yung in nature, yung the cycles, the rhythms, and how they all fit together, how they mesh together, makikita mo maganda talaga yung so it's a more profound sense of appreciation of parang when you see how things fall into place, it's much more beautiful than something visually visually attractive, no? Pero pag nakita mo yung thing is beautiful not because of it's visually or retinally attractive, no? But yun nga, it's the gestalt, it's the in the harmony in nature, yung the inner rhythms or mga cycles, yun yung maganda sa in nature. And galing kay Leonard yan, yung that way of looking at things. So yun.
Pleasant evening to all. When Leonard founded the PNPCSI in 2007-2008, he imbibed such a strong sense of urgency to protect our native flora and its native habitats. The regular sessions way into the night with his marathon lectures and the sharing of his native flora encounters presented via thousands upon thousands of photos each time he came from his fieldwork, kept us in awe of such richness and diversity of our native flora. Faced with the wanton destruction of our forests from mining and logging operations, the then handful of members fully appreciated Leonard's strong sense of urgency. Thus, dreams occupied their minds, passion engulfed their hearts, and the determination to very actively pursue the conservation of our native plants and its natural habitats became the clear focus. Because time was running fast and so much work needed to be done, Leonard opened PNPCSI membership to embrace all academic backgrounds so that parallel with botanical studies, cultivation work, and the promotion of native flora utilization in our lives, inclusive of the urban areas, may simultaneously proceed as well. After all, a successful conservation program should reflect in the number of native flora conserved and eventually cultivated for the Filipinos' use. Losing Leonard in 2010, only a few years after PNPCSI has been established, was devastating. He, however, already deeply ingrained in the society the need to sustain and foster native flora conservation and promotion works. The pain of losing him did not deter the society from moving on. His life and works, in fact, inspired the society to do well, launching its very first international symposium just 1 year after his death. The symposium, more than anything, was a celebration of the nationalist and Filipino conservationist that was Leonard. It was beautifully capped by the launching of COS Digital Flora by Drs. Peter Pelser, Julie Barcelona, and Daniel Nikrent. After 11 years, PNPCSI continues to be just as passionate and hardworking, never losing sight of the importance and relevance of its advocacy. Now, we are on our sixth international symposium. Because of the limitations caused by the pandemic, the society has wonderfully flexed its creativity, competence, and resilience, and I'm sure all of you will appreciate the relevance of the papers and posters that shall be presented. If I may share my thought and wish on moving on, it is for the next symposium and succeeding activities to cover equal content on the conservation of native flora through cultivation and its promotion via green parks and gardens, such as Michael Calaramos Northwestern University Ecotourism Parks and Botanic Gardens in Lawag, and Ron Achacoso's Pinto Secret Garden of Native Flora, urban and peri-urban greening, such as West Grove Greening and Ayala projects, ecotourism, such as Anthony Arbes and Michael Calaramos engagements, and the arts in the manner artists being Famoso and Raxin Manikiz have promoted native flora. This all-inclusive approach to promote native flora beyond pure science will surely please Leonard. My high esteem to the PNPCSI team for making this sixth symposium most worthwhile, especially in this time of the pandemic. Congratulations.
Good evening. I have prepared 11 slides signifying 11 events on Sir Leonard's life and the organization he founded. It was in 2007 when Sir Leonard asked me to look for a venue where we can set an informal meeting to form a plant organization which would focus on native plants conservation. Months before that meeting, he had already spoken to many of his colleagues in the scientific community. He also asked me to invite friends in my own circle who would be interested on this brand new endeavor. I asked a friend who manages the UP Bonsai Garden, named Mr. Modi Manglikmot, and he readily said yes if it was for Leonard. The first meeting was attended by notable scientists and personalities and friends. That meeting gave rise to the first circle of the would-be organization. The second meeting took place at the National Museum and followed by another big meeting at the Ninoy Aquino Parks and Wildlife Center. Sir Leonard loves cracking jokes. Contrary to his silent and serious personality, in between the three big meetings of PNPCSI, he would often text or call us for an emergency meeting, which took place on a small herbarium office at UP Diliman, or any fast food where we can chat about the plans for the new plant society. During the drafting of the mission of the organization, he jokingly said, our vision is blurred and our mission is impossible. Then everyone laughed and followed jokes one after the other. The draft finally came to be when the more serious members took over the laptop and Sir Leonard began to be more serious. A lot of us contributed in drafting the mission statements and plans of the would-be society, but everyone forgot on how it's going to be called. One day, he asked for another meeting just to come up with a name, so each member volunteered a keyword and would ultimately ended up with the Philippine Native Plants Conservation Society. I think it was just in the beginning until someone pointed out that we needed to put an I, as in incorporated, because we need to formalize and register the organization to the Securities and Exchange Commission. Someone said, we have a very long name. Why don't we use an acronym instead? And we were all shocked that we are PNP-CSI, which coincidentally means the Philippine National Police, or PNP, and CSI as Crime Scene Investigation, a popular TV series at that time. Everyone laughed again and jokingly said, PNP na and CSI pa. During those days, we never really thought of our native plant societies abroad. All he cared for is to come up with an organization which would focus entirely on creating awareness towards native plants and use science to further improve the habitat and plant species conservation. Upon preparing for his 11th anniversary tribute, I noticed that Sir Leonard made a truly remarkable invention, a very profound cause which is unique not only in Asia but the rest of the world. Until now, PNP-CSI is the only one in the Philippines. After the organization has been finally registered as a corporation in 2008, we were lucky and blessed to partner with the Protected Areas and Wildlife Bureau under the leadership of Director Monita Lim. A small office was assigned to us inside the Ninoy Aquino Parks and Wildlife Center, and it became home of PNP-CSI. I think Sir Leonard made it his second home as he passionately transformed a blank building into a decent library filled up almost of his entire personal botanical collection, which is made accessible for anybody who likes to learn a thing or two about botany. Sir Leonard took the initiative on transferring some of their personal appliances and furnitures to make our new office a comfortable and functioning one. Due to his high energy and kindness, many members followed Sir Leonard's generosity and contributed until the new office became fully functional. Sir Leonard personally led the tree inventory at the Ninoy Aquino Parks and Wildlife Center and gathered many of us on a voluntary basis almost every weekend and also during his day offs. And we were able to finish the whole 22 hectares park after a few months. Sir Leonard also brought his first official students in UP Diliman in action during the multi-month-long tree inventory of the park. Aside from taking the lead of the inventory, he would do the marketing of ingredients early in the morning, then cook food for all of the volunteers during lunchtime. He also does the washing in the kitchen and sweeping of the floor in the afternoon. Of course, we would help him when he's already tired. The society has his first break with the GTC project and made everyone busy. Among all the activities Sir Leonard initiated, it was his plant field trips, which got every member excited about. This activity was later known as the Tree Walk, which is a leisurely blend of field taxonomy and ethnobotany on a particular location. It was in 2010 and a busy year for Sir Leonard after signing in several field contracts after his early retirement from his long work when tragedy happened. His first tragedy was in Palanan, Isabela province in October that year. A super typhoon internationally called Maggie hit the long-time forest dynamics plot where Sir Leonard was working and the entire province was swept by a Category 5 hurricane. Sir Leonard, who was unfortunately there at that time, witnessed the massive destruction of the super typhoon. He was airlifted to Manila and had a welcome event organized by members of PNPCSI afterwards. That evening became a very memorable and meaningful evening for all of us. We didn't know that it was the last time he was able to be seen by his ever-supportive members of the organization. On November 15, 2010, Sir Leonard and two of his companions were killed while they were searching for mother trees in Cananga, Leyte. Sir Leonard's death was a very hard thing to cope and accept for many of us. It was the lowest time for PNPCSI. After reorganizing the society, one of our first agenda was to honor him by changing the organization's logo, by using the image of the plant named after him. On the early days of PNPCSI, we already nominated the official Leonardi as the main symbol of our society many times. But Sir Leonard would always say no and say, "Uy, pucha! Pare, wag niyong gawin yan, ha?" But after raising his voice for his refusal, there's always a shine on his eyes and a smile which would always keep away from us. The PNPCSI logo was conceptualized by the board and designed by artist members Ronald Achacoso, architect Patrick Gozon, and Mika Peralero. Since the Rafflesia was a rare species which needs not only species conservation but habitat conservation to survive, it is a very idyllic and iconic symbol which can give us a guiding light towards conservation and protection of native plant species in the country. When he was still alive, I remember him said to me, "Alam mo pare, dito sa Pilipinas, ang hustisya ay parang pagtaya lang sa loto." After his death, the Justice for Leonard Co., Sofronio Cortez, and Julius Borromeo movement was formed through the leadership of Dr. Giovanni Tapa and supported by many organizations, colleagues, and friends of the slain victims. It was also through these times that PNPCSI were able to know and get close with Sir Leonard's relatives. Since PNPCSI was built on love and respect for Sir Leonard and native plants, the organization strived hard to cope with his loss and pursued Sir Leonard's dreams even further. PNPCSI was able to stand on its feet again and shine on a new beginning. To honor him again, the first PCSI International Symposium with the theme Philippine Botanical Treasures and the Legacy of Leonard Co. was organized and staged at the National Museum. Our symposium is already on the 6th series, and only happens with your continued support for PNPCSI. An assortment of activities, initiatives, and partnerships are happening for PNPCSI as everyone helps in achieving Leonard's and the other members' dreams. If Sir Leonard's still alive today, you would be surprised about the many seeds he planted many years ago and how they have germinated. Sir Leonard was a very good teacher for all of us, a very passionate advocate for native plants, and a charismatic leader. His influence inspired many of us until many of us reshaped under different conditions. Beyond the premises of PNPCSI, Leonard's advocacy has developed into a more diverse appreciation and use of native plants up to date. A few weeks ago, I was assigned in Samar, the next door neighbor of Leyte province where Sir Leonard was killed. It was a strange feeling for me while we were working deep into the forest and his 11th death anniversary was fast approaching. After a long break because of the pandemic, there was I working with young scientists and botanists who were very enthusiastic about plants and the wilderness in the area. Close to our last days in the field, that's the only time I realized and knew that the two of my young research companions are NPCSI members. After 11 years of Sir Leonard's death, we see him in different versions, especially on unexpected places. Thus, there is more hope for the native plants in our country. Thank you.
When I joined PMPCSI in 2013, Leonard Go was no longer around. However, his advocacy was carried on by the organization's members and officers, led by Dr. Antonio Manila. Doc Tony, as we fondly called him, was one of the original founders of the society, and at that time he was the president. He was a forester, a teacher, and a dedicated public servant, working with the Biodiversity Management Bureau of the DENR, where he became the assistant director. Doc Tony shepherded the organization for several years, developing partnerships with other environmental groups and harnessing the talent and expertise of the members, several of whom were in the core group that Leonard had mentored in the early years of the organization. Those of us who did not have the benefit of knowing Leonard personally learned from our co-members who passed on his love for native plants and the knowledge that went with it. We cannot love what we do not know, and the knowledge that our native plants is something that Leonard had shared with the members of the society, and that we in turn cascaded to the general public. Doc Tony left us suddenly in 2017, and as vice president then, I took over. With the able support of the Board of Trustees, we continued the organization's key activities, foremost of which were knowledge dissemination through tree walks, seminars, social media, and publications such as the desk calendars and the guide to the UP Diliman Marine Science Institute's Garden of Indigenous and Flowering Trees. We also continued to provide a venue for the formal dissemination of knowledge about Philippine native plants through the conduct of biannual international symposia, and this current symposium is now our 6th. From stories told to me by friends who knew and worked with Leonard, one thing I came to know about him is that he was practically a walking encyclopedia about our native plants. And as he unselfishly shared his knowledge about them, he ignited in his friends, colleagues, and students the passion to study them further and conserve them and their habitats. As PMPCSI members, we continue the Society's advocacy with the same zeal and passion as its founder, Leonard Ko.
Hi, I've been asked to share how Sir Leonard influenced me and others towards the conservation of Philippine native plants. I think that Sir Leonard didn't have a deliberate strategy on how to influence anyone, but he could easily hook you into being interested in Philippine plants because he could wow you with nature, right? With the diversity of the plants in the landscape. He was also super enthusiastic and so earnest and dedicated. You couldn't help but be inspired by that and be influenced into thinking that, even just a small fragment of that enthusiasm you could have. He also had this remarkable ability to be able to speak with anybody about plants, um, from you know from those without much botanical knowledge, thinking all plants are the same, green leaves, brown stem, to experts with their advanced degrees. I think that approachability coupled with uh, this extensive knowledge that he had just drew people to him, that they could spend hours talking about plants with coffee, or spend hours in the field tramping along learning about the different species. And in these discussions, right, it would run the gamut from simply introducing what native species were, what were exotics, to the more in-depth threats that these species were facing and the conservation measures that were needed. And so sort of that same spread of topics remains actually to be the advocacy of the society today. Learning about the different species, sharing that information, and hopefully conserving these different species in the variety of habitats across the country. And so I think that reflects that influence that he had on the society and its members, and their activities. Oh.
I'm Darwin Flores, brother-in-law of Leonard Co, who married my sister, Glenda. I was the convener of the 7-day traverse trek that his outdoor friends and colleagues undertook in April of 2011, 5 months after his untimely death. Leonard was a busy man and always out in the field, always outdoors, and comes home to my sister with muddied boots and clothes and smells of the forest. We used to tease our sister, maybe you should dress up as a tree so Leonard will spend more time, or at least the same time with you than with the forest. In late 2010, just before flying for another field assignment in Cananga, Leyte, Leonard was caught up in Palanan, Isabela, where he was the main investigator in the 16-hectare forest dynamics plot. I find this study of forest dynamics quite curious. I thought then that forests are static, they are just standing there. But with Leonard patiently and passionately explaining what it was, of course, with his trademark shower of saliva, particularly when he was comparing the dispersal of wild rambutan on the opposite sides of the Sierra Madre Mountains, I began to understand and appreciate his work. It was during one of his excited lectures where he half seriously mentioned, okay, if I die ahead of you, please scatter my ashes in the Sierra Madre Mountains. I took it that he was not serious when he said that. So he was caught in Palanan when Super Typhoon 1, international name Meggy, lashed across the northern Sierra Madre Mountains. And the scientist that he is, he took pictures of the devastation not only of human structures but also of the typhoon's impact to the flora and fauna. It was during the Palananco Sierra Madre trek that we, the first outsiders since the super typhoon, were able to witness the brunt of the forest destruction across the landscape. It would have been a perfect study in forest dynamics for Leonard. The pictures that Leonard and our group took have been archived and can be publicly accessed in the Facebook page Palananco Sierra Madre Trek. While still heartbroken, my sister remembered the wishes of her husband to scatter his ashes, or at least part of it, in the Palanan Forest Dynamics plot. That was his home away from home. It was the 40th day of his death in December 2010 when I said to Anthony here and the rest of the crew, "Why don't you, the mountaineers, do a tribute trek, fulfill on the wishes of Leonard, and traverse the northern Sierra Madre Mountains in his name?" Well, I can help organize the trek logistics, permits, coordination with the military and insurgents, and I can meet you there in Palanan. Well, I initially intended to take the plane and not join the trek as I was the most physically unfit in the group, and at 50 years old at that. Well, that was the initial plan. I did end up joining the trek and physically prepared myself for climbing by climbing the stairs of our 33-story building for several months. The spirit of Leonard united a diverse group of friends and assembled a dream team of outdoorsmen and women, science colleagues of various expertise, and generated logistical and moral support from environmental NGOs, an outdoor equipment company, a telecommunications and an energy company, the Armed Forces of the Philippines, even the Northern Command of the New People's Army, the Department of Interior and Local Government, media, and the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, that bestowed upon him posthumous honors as an environmental hero. It was as if Leonard represented the best in each of our relationship with Mother Nature that called us to honor him in her name. The tribute trek was 10 years ago, 10 long years. A major disturbance shook the forest of the Philippines with the death of Leonard. But just like the forest, there is strong natural succession. Life finds a way. And it's fitting that the organization that Leonard founded, the Philippine Native Plants Conservation Society, finds its way to continue its great work. Indeed, a tree lives, a tree dies, the forest lives forever.
November 15, 2021, ang ikalabing-isang taon ng pagkamatay ni Leonard. At tayo ngayon ay muling nagpaparangal at nagbibigay ng tribute. Gusto kong magsimula sa taus-pusong pasasalamat sa inyong lahat. Ngayong araw na ito, para muling gunitain si Leonard, na nagtapos ang buhay niya sa mundong ito edad 56 years old, na buhay at punong-puno ng accomplishments and friendships. Saka, lubos akong nagpapasalamat sa Philippine Native Plants Conservation Society sa pagbuo ng ganitong symposium, Saving the Plants That Save Us, and the relevance in this pandemic, and forest conservation as taught by Leonard. Kung andito si Leonard ngayon, alam ko na he will be very pleased and happy dahil sa dalawang bagay. Una, naaalaala ninyo pa rin siya for almost 11 years. Nawala na siya at hindi nyo na siya kasama at makakasama pang muli. Pangalawa, dahil itinaon ninyo ang symposium na ito sa araw na ito at kung asan man siya, pinagpapatuloy ang nasimulan niya na advokasya. Napakagandang adhikain na ipinamalas at ipinamamalas pa ninyo hanggang sa kasalukuyan. Wala na si Leonard. Lalong na-realize ko that God gave me not just a good but a great husband. Our common interest was medicinal plants. He had the passion for medicinal plants, botany, and for environmental conservation. The passion until his last breath, the last day of his life. Lagi siyang nagmamadali na para bang lagi siyang maiiwanan ng oras. Inaabot ng umaga sa pagkatalog ng mga halaman. Sa simpleng buhay at pamamaraan niya bilang Filipino-Chinese, Ilocano-Chinese, lahat ng ginawa niya para lamang tumulong ay mahalagang kontribusyon sa ating bansa. Ang buhay niya gaano man kasimple ay nakakakitaan ng isang magandang halimbawa o inspirasyon para sa lahat. He never thought of himself as great. He freely gave whatever he knew. Even the little time that we would have as a family, we willingly share with his passion. Linnea and I sleeping on the floor of UP Herbarium to meet up with him after coming from months of field work. and needing to immediately store and document his found specimens, if not write up his reports. He had a very special and undying commitment to botany, to forest conservation, and to sharing knowledge to everyone. I feel honored na binibigyan ninyo ng halaga ang buhay at tagumpay niya o makiramay sa hindi masasabing normal o ordinaryong circumstances sa pagkamatay niya. Aking kinikilala ang naging bahagi ninyong lahat sa buhay niya, naging maganda man o hindi magandang experience. Sa kanyang pagkamatay, ang ideals niya ay hindi dapat natin malimutan, and let us continue to carry on. Leonard has left us. Leonard had been generous in sharing everything he had, his time, talents, and resources during his lifetime. He is a rare species in this wilderness of life, a grand masterpiece of God's mighty hand. He was an intellectual and a gifted man, yet very generous, humble, and kind, also fighting for democratic rights. He was a loss not only to us but to the Philippine nation as well. Now that he's gone for 11 years, with his soul wandering and crying out for justice, we will still continue to fight for justice. Marami ng pangyayari since his death, awards, continuing his unfinished works, na nasimulan at ginagawa na ng iba't ibang groups and individuals. Hearing at Kananga Leyte, Municipal Trial Court, and all support for justice cause. But up to now, since his death, on November 2010, now 2021 na, wala pa ring napaparusahan, bagkos napopromote pa ang mga salarin. I hope you will still join me for our quest for justice, whatever it takes. Tomorrow, November 16, 2021 at Kananga Leyte, is the continuation of the hearing at SB Session Hall, Kananga Leyte at 2 p.m. Whatever support, financial, moral, spiritual, get in touch with us through PCP and PCSI or Leonardo Co in Memoriam. Sana ay mabigyan na ng katarungan ang at papanagutin ang dapat managot at parusahan ang may sala. Maraming salamat po.
Si Daddy, as I remember, hindi ko siya laging nakakasama. Yung from time to time, kasi lagi siyang wala. But I do remember the memories that he left. Of course, pagluluto, which is sobrang passionate niya doon. Yung hobbies niya, harmonica. I'd always see him as well in the herbarium. His second home. His ultimate home, actually. For how many years, and yun yung mahal niya, no? Passion niya talaga. So passionate about his work. He loved it so much. I remember as a kid asking him, bakit kailangan mo lagi magtrabaho? Bakit? Because it's a memorable thought for me. Yung question ko na yun kasi, bakit? Diba? Napaka-questionable na, ba't dun ka na umuwi? Bakit gusto mong laging nandun? Diba? Siyempre, as a child, you'll be curious as well na, bakit kaya? Diba? Anong meron dun sa work or line of work? No? So, as a kid, I get to be answered by him na, kasi ito lang ang gusto kong trabaho. Ito ang gagawin ko. As far as I remember, sinasabi niya, ito ang gagawin ko hanggat mawala ako. You know, maintindihan mo lalo yung line of work ng tatay mo. So, ako naman, curious lang naman ako na, kaya pala doon na siya umuwi. You know? Hindi na. Pero, syempre, doon na siya lagi. So, ako naman, na-curious naman ako kung bakit. So, naintindihan ko lalo na sa pagmamahal niya sa trabaho niya at sa mga kasama niya. Naalala ko bilang isang napakabuting unconditional yung love, he would always cook for us, yun nga. Ang way niya to make it up to us ng nanay ko ay magluluto, ilalabas kami, ganun. Magkakwentuhan. He would take us sa UP din as well. Magagala kami doon. He would teach us few things. Like, I remember he's teaching me Chinese, pero siguro as a kid, I see no interest in learning other language, no? But now that It's very important those memories were. So, for regarding the justice, so we're still fighting for the case, no, for how many years now? So, the pain, the pain never goes away. The pain is always there. The case is still ongoing. We've been fighting for this case, and we've been down several times. Now, why still fight for justice? Why still fight for this case? So, bakit nga ba? Bakit nga ba pinaglalaban? Bilang isang Leonard ko, kung nabubuhay siya, tao, patayan niyang papaglaban para sa hustisya. So ganun siya. He's a legend. Always will be a legend. Still fighting. Bilang isang anak na mawala ng ama sa maagang edad, napakasakit. No? Kahit ang nanay ko sa pagpapalaki sa akin ng mag-isa, napakasakit na mawala ng asawa. Lalo na sa ganong trahedya. Si daddy ay nandyan lang, no? Kung nasan man siya. So, ayun, I know, he's doing his thing somewhere. Still in the forest, probably, exploring. Of course, it's better if he's here. But, that's just it. Things happened and we will continue to fight for justice. Let's continue seeking for justice. We will continue seeking for justice. Maraming salamat dahil nagbigay platform kayo sa amin para makapagsalita. Remembering at telling a story, how he was as a father, how he was as a teacher, how he was as a friend, and as a family. So he will always be remembered.
On behalf of AGHAM, Advocates for Science and Technology for the People, and Justice for Leonard Co movement, we would like to congratulate the Philippine Native Plants Conservation Society in their 6th symposium entitled Saving the Plants That Save Us. This is also a commemorative day as we remember the life of Leonard Co, who was a victim of extrajudicial killing by the 19th Infantry Battalion 11 years ago while conducting ethnobotanical study in Cananga, Leyte, together with fellow researcher Julius Borromeo and farmer Sofronio Cortez. This is a blatant disregard for their right to life that were violated by the state forces. And for many years, justice remained elusive for the 3 victims. And it is very evident that all the court decisions are all in favor of the murderers when in 2013, the family filed a petition assailing the resolution of the Department of Justice that the case to be filed is reckless imprudence instead of murder. In 2019, all the petitions filed by the family were denied. The change of court in the hearing, the obstruction of justice and administrative case, and the review on reckless imprudence. This coming November 16, the court hearing will resume with the cross-examination of 2 witnesses. Despite the setbacks in the said cases, the Justice for Leonard Co will continue to call for justice to be served for all those who are responsible for the deaths, to make them accountable for the crimes they have committed. Justice for the Cananga 3, justice for all the extrajudicial killings.